This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
Hello, friends and bad movie lovers. Welcome back to another episode of Bad Movies We Love.
If you're listening to this, you are the Resistance.
You heard the man, and the Resistance is growing. This show passed 1,000 downloads and did it in only about 20 episodes, so that's a nice little milestone for an independent show like this one. That also means that you, the listeners, are out there spreading the word like a virus, but that is much appreciated. The donations page is also live now at ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/badmovieswelove. And for today's episode, I have a very special treat as my future wife, my fiancée Christen, joins me to talk about a film that she has a personal connection to, and also a movie that I wouldn't be surprised to see in Quentin Tarantino's personal collection, and that's Jessica Bendinger's Stick It from 2006.
It felt very much like this is like a go big or go home and we don't really care.
Super weird in a very enjoyable way.
The film was made because of the time it was at, not the other way around.
How annoying is it watching gymnastics with me?
You did get a deduction if you picked your wedgie.
Oh my god, I do this all the time.
You can push some artistry on the beam, but you're focusing on staying on that 4-inch piece of wood.
It's amazing.
I mean, I don't think that's where they're making their money. I'm just saying it's fun.
The devil's candy, boys. And away we go. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for finally agreeing to come on. It's the long-awaited fiancé-sode. The fiancé-episode.
Sure, that works.
But we're going to be talking about Stick It. We pivoted. We jumped all over the place. We had initially talked about, what was it?
High School Musical 3.
High School Musical 3. And then we ended up watching 3 and watching 1, but not 2.
We still have to watch 2.
Instead, we watched Lemonade Mouth, which was just in a phase of I wanted to watch movies, and I was just going to let you pick whatever. As long as it was a movie, it was fine.
So I ran with that control. I had to.
You did. It was fun. High School Musical 3 wasn't bad. It could have made the cut for this show, but I don't know why you ended up pivoting, or I don't even know how we got to Stick It. Do you remember?
Yeah, we were watching the championship competition with Simone Biles, although we still need to watch the last day. And something came up about, I think, just talking about gymnastics in general, and I was like, Stick It.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we were watching the gymnastics, so.
Okay. I couldn't remember if that was before or after, but.
We watched it and then watched Stick It the next night or that same night.
Okay. That seems to add up. But I will ask you, I mean, what I typically ask my guests.
Oh, thanks for also clearing your schedule for me, too.
Yeah. I mean, it's 10 o'clock at night, but I mean, we tried to make this happen on Saturday and then Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And here we are Thursday night.
Better late than never.
Yeah, burning the midnight oil. It's fine. I've got all day to edit this tomorrow. But why did you choose Stick It? Like, what connected the dots with that movie and then using that for this show?
I think it was just to try and get you to watch it. And then I was like, this has to qualify as a bad movie, but I love it. And I don't know that it aged entirely well. I can see why I loved it so much at the time. And plus it was the first, like, mainstream theatrical movie based on gymnastics. So I was like, why not? I mean, I have a long list I could have pulled from just to get you to watch those bad movies with me.
Yeah, like A Mom for Christmas. But
Yes.
everybody seems to like that movie, so I don't
movie.
even think that qualifies. But just some numbers for the people at home. Stick It is from 2006, and it has a tomato score of 32%, critic score, but it has an audience score of 73%. And if you look at the IMDb score, it has an average user rating of 6.3, Metascore of 53. But then again, on Letterboxd, it's 3.5. So it's a 7 out of 10. So I think generally people seem to like this movie, but critics were more harsh, more dismissive of it than the people that watched it. So since you picked the movie, I want to hear you explain why you think people would say this is a bad movie.
I mean, I would say the humor, even some of the acting, is pretty cheesy, but it's also what I love about bad movies. They definitely knew it and ran with it. I don't think it was like they were trying to be really serious and it just came off poorly. Plus, I think the other reason why we brought it up, something had come up about the lead actress, which, you know, I'm a fan. So I think that's why I connected the other dots.
Missy and Peregrym.
Yes, Missy. But I would say, especially in the gymnastics world, I mean, it's pretty spot on how you can see the cattiness. So I don't know why people really hated it. Like I said, at the time, it came out in 2006. That means we were 22. Not to age us too much, but
No.
And again, first theatrical movie for a gymnastics movie. I don't remember hearing at the time it was being reviewed poorly. But watching it now, kind of like we've talked about some of the other movies we've watched, like with your film club, it got away with a lot of things because it was 2006 and it wouldn't go over well at all right now. So I think that's why I think I view it as what that, bad movie could be.
Yeah, it's not malicious in its intent, but
No.
it is dated very heavily towards the early 2000s. A lot of the wardrobe choices are very specific to that time period and were echoed in Hostel when I covered that movie not too recently on the show. That same sort of t-shirts with the long sleeve white undershirt underneath it, the like really long cargo shorts with way too many pockets. I mean, like, have I dressed like that in the past? Yes, of course I have, but that's how I knew it was 2005. But you had mentioned, we were watching gymnastics and, we went to the gymnastics, was it the Gold Star tour at what used to be Staples Center?
Yeah, when the tour they do after the Olympics.
And I think for context, so that people understand why we're casually watching gymnastics on like a Tuesday night, why don't you explain? I mean, I can give some background. You were a gymnast for a very long period of time, but can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that was it. At the time when it came out, I was coaching gymnastics after retiring from being a gymnast myself. And it was a big event for us to be able to take all the kids that we were coaching. I think it even came out in the summer. I think we made it like a summer camp thing and just made it as a field trip that, during a gymnastics summer camp, we get to go see a movie about gymnastics, which wasn't happening, especially at the time. I don't even think it's still happened since, to be honest, as far as a theatrical movie goes. But it was an event that we could make event out of it.
It does have a very TV movie quality to it in the way that it's presented at times, but it's mixed with some really good filmmaking at times as well. And this is Jessica Benninger, who wrote Bring It On. So this is sort of piggybacking on the success of that and banking on a little bit. But I think if you were to line the two movies up next to each other, you would see that the, let's call it cinematic quality of Bring It On is substantially stronger than that of Stick It. But Stick It does have some great moments in it. And when I was just like casually watching it, you saw me like taking pictures of the television, because there's a lot of scenes in the movie where sort of the choreography and the cinematography blend very well together, and it does some unique things. And I really appreciated that more than I thought. But there's also a lot of like red backdrops, which, you know, I'm a sucker for red, as we just saw the 40th anniversary of Christine, one of my favorite films.
That's for another
last
episode.
night. No, that's not a bad movie at all.
No,
I mean,
I said another episode, not this show episode.
that's true.
Necessarily.
I know. I'll force somebody else to watch it, but but since what were your active years as a gymnast? Not like the year, but like your age range.
Well, I would say because I grew up in a recreational setting, I didn't grow up in a competition setting, because we didn't have a competition team until I was later in my teens. But I mean, I started at 1.5 to 2 years old in like tumble gym, kind of like dance studio gymnastics. And then I went to the gym that I pretty much became a gym brat in and grew up in. I want to say I was 3 to 4. I think I was 3. So for 13 plus years in that gym as a gymnast. And then I was coaching while doing gymnastics for a big portion of it, but I got injured, and that's why I retired and just stuck with coaching until I didn't do that anymore.
Do you have any interest in sharing that injury?
If it's not TMI, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yes, I dislocated and broke my tailbone.
And you did that how?
On the balance beam.
And I asked because there's a scene in this film where one of the gymnasts falls hard on the balance beam. And it's like, just from a stunt perspective, it's such a good bump. Like, I think that's what they would call it, like in the wrestling business, when you take a fall a particular way and like it looks good on camera. So it's like, I doubt that they would ask this gymnast to injure themselves intentionally for the purpose of the film. But you also have to be a very good gymnast in order to fall like that and not actually hurt yourself. And there is some focus around injuries and stuff in this film as well. And because you have such a personal connection to the sport, and this was such a big deal at the time as a result, like, do you feel like you would have connected with this film like had you not been into gymnastics? Because it's like I said, it feels almost like a Disney movie or Nickelodeon original movie at times. So it may have even ended up on one of those channels. But one of the things this movie does well, at least from an outsider perspective, is that it seems to address a lot of the actual tangible issues with the sport in a not so direct way that it's off-putting to the people that would actually go see it in theaters, but for the people that know, they'll know, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even that, watching it then versus now with hindsight in the picture, I would say if you're completely removed from the gymnastics world in general, or even if you're part of it to a certain degree, but you're not really submerged in the politics, you can say, that comes around with it, I would say a lot of those kind of hidden cues, or those hidden or just more subtle storylines of what they're poking at, would definitely be missed by pretty much anyone that is not submerged in that background politics, for sure.
And I would also say that between 2006 and 21, 22, a lot more stuff came to light publicly. And gymnastics also had the benefit of having a superstar kind of athlete in Simone Biles that brought a lot more attention and awareness and coverage to the sport that maybe wasn't there 20 years ago. But I would say it's probably a fairly safe bet to suggest that the vast majority of critics that were tasked with reviewing this movie were not gymnasts and had no idea about what was going on in the sport well enough to actually understand the depth of the context.
Absolutely. And they were probably almost all male.
Yeah. Well, I didn't review the movie at the time because I was not writing about film at the time.
That's not a dig at you. I'm just saying, like, I won't get pulled up.
Well, it's easy to sort of look the other way when you don't know and when you don't want to know. And so, like, if you work for some random newspaper or magazine that's going to send you to review this film, and you go into it and you only see the sort of like technical proficiency of it, and like I said, that TV movie quality and some of the acting and some of the dialogue choices with some of the actors, I think it's very easy just to be like, this movie's terrible, and then walk out and leave it at that. But having not seen it until after knowing all of the breaking news that came out of it, we watched a documentary. When we watched a couple of documentaries on the sport as well, we've gone to see it in person. We watched the Olympics together. We were watching the trials together. The trials and the Olympic trials together. But I think it probably was easy to dismiss this as just sort of like a Bring It On clone, where everybody can very easily identify cheerleaders. So I think it's a little bit easier to just swallow that storyline as something that everybody can relate to, and then you see this and it's like, okay, well, this is just copying that formula but with a more narrow scope kind of thing.
If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure they advertise this as the Bring It On for gymnastics.
I mean, I would.
Yeah, because
Bring It On was very successful.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Bring It On. I still love it. I mean, I haven't watched
too.
it as an adult at this point probably, but it was a huge deal at the time.
Next time.
Okay, next episode. It was a huge deal at the time, especially. So, and I feel like they were not even 10 years apart. I don't remember, but it was definitely
Yeah, it's like 2 or 3.
advertised. I feel like that way.
Okay, so Bring It On was in 2000. This was 2006, so within 10 years.
Yeah, less than 10 years.
But let's take a look at the trailer and we'll see. Because I didn't watch it yet. I never do. I always wait until we can do the trailer reaction with the guest. So let's take a look at that. Before we get to the trailer, it's time for a quick word from our sponsor. Training for the Olympics is hard work, and when you spend all day on the mats honing your skills, you don't exactly have time to think about what snacks are going to give you a competitive advantage. Well, now you don't have to thanks to Wizzy Twists, the new high-performance athletic snack designed by gold medal winning gymnasts and the latest trendy artificial intelligence. Wizzy Twists may look like Twizzlers and taste like a more delicious version of Red Vines, but these power performance snacks come loaded with antioxidants, packed with protein, laced with collagen, and spiked with a hint of green tea caffeine to keep you going strong all day long. And they do all that with no added sugar. So grab a pack of Wizzy Twists and take a bite out of the competition. And now, back to the show.
Every day, I break the law of gravity.
It's lines like that.
I love it though.
And sometimes other laws get broken in the process.
We didn't even get to talk about the point where this movie starts with like a skateboarders versus BMX riders backyard competition.
To juvie. Instead, I got sent back to the world I thought I'd escaped forever.
I mean,
welcome to the Peregrym Gymnastics Academy.
What is she doing here?
Why all the hate? But when you walk out on finals
She's got
and
the
lose
like the
Team
Von
USA,
Dutch
some
trucker
Team
hat
Gold,
look
it's
with
not
the
personal. It's national.
the sweater and the
come out of retirement
camo mid-shin shorts.
cargo.
That?
Oh, goody.
I mean, the soundtrack for this movie too.
Jealous, Haley? Can you tell Joanne that I'm gonna do a real dismount? Haley's gonna do a real dismount. Put down the phone.
Haley. Now we work one way around here. That's my way. Or we can call the judge. You decide.
Way to build trust.
I couldn't resist.
I wonder how they got
Can you
Jeff
imagine making it all the way
Bridges
to finals and walking
to sign
out?
on to this.
Totally
I know.
insane.
That was
what was
final.
he doing in
It's
2000?
not called gymnast.
I mean, Arlington Road was like late
The IG
90s. Like
Classic is coming up in a couple
he
of weeks.
had
This
he
could
had
be
another
your
one in the
last
late
chance
90s
to turn
too.
your life around.
If you think that I'm getting on this
think
competition
it was
floor
White
with
Squall
some
was
stupid
him.
cookie-cutter routine,
Some boating
you are
movie.
seriously senile.
You gonna hurt yourself?
Probably.
Just don't get blood on the equipment.
Zing.
Okay, guys, let it rip.
If you're gonna eat Matt, you eat Matt hard.
Come on, get in the truck.
You no voice?
I mean, one good thing that the trailer does do is it actually shows like a lot of the actual gymnastics that happen in the movie.
Stalk you.
So this isn't a movie that like, hey, it's about gymnastics,
How do
but
we not know about
we're
this
not
sport?
going to actually show you gymnastics. Like there's a lot of actual real
just to make sure you stay
competition gymnastics going on.
And they have Olympians.
They do.
Do fun cameos.
Yeah, but in order to actually have this movie work and show functional gymnastics, you needed actual gymnasts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, there's some other cameos in there, like not Nastia Lukin is in it. Yeah, and
Carly Patterson's in it. Nadia Comaneci is in it.
she does have like a guest spot later.
Yeah.
Cameo.
Because there's a reference or there's a line at during the part where they're outside with the boys or something inside, I think. I can't remember, where they're like, don't be a Nadia or something, or do
Who died and made you Nadia?
something like that. There you
Oh.
go. Oh, you took a note for it.
Oh, I took notes for a lot of this, but we already covered the BMX stuff. We already covered it being like wild and dated, but there are a lot of needle drops, as the trailer would suggest. It definitely shows off its soundtrack, for better or worse. I mean, but it does have a musical quality to it, which we talked about. It seems like it's almost paced where you're conditioned to like expect musical numbers out of it, and maybe it's because we watched High School Musical and Lemonade Mouth, and it sort of feels like it's cut from the same cloth as that. But there are some moments where it feels like if we were watching a stage show, right? And there's no singing though, but there's some stuff where you could say like it's dancing. I mean, there's a lot of choreographed stuff in there. And there's some synchronized choreographed stuff, which actually comes across pretty well on camera when they want to do that. But I'm going to ask you, this is the question that I know you were like trying to get pre-screened questions here, but I told you that just because we're engaged doesn't mean I'm going to give you the questions before we do the show.
Fine.
So I want to ask you, how annoying is it watching gymnastics with me? Because I did not compete in gymnastics. I don't know the sport very well. And you competed in it and trained in it for a long, long time. And we watch it together, and, you know, I have a lot of questions. And so I'm just curious, like, is it really annoying to me to like have me sitting there asking you questions constantly about it?
No, not at all. That's a hilarious question. No. No, I think especially because obviously of the two of us, you are the more knowledgeable one around sports.
Most sports, yeah.
Most sports. Like, I know gymnastics and I know gymnastics. I never once would have thought at all that your questions would have been annoying. I like being able to answer questions. And then I also am like, I don't know, sometimes because I've been removed for so long and I don't like the new scoring system. Still, I will be that old school stickler, but it sort of makes sense. But no, I like being able to answer those questions.
Okay. I guess from my perspective, there was always this thing of like, guys don't like watching football with girls that ask a lot of questions kind of thing. And like, you weren't a big football fan when we first got together and we started watching it. And I was like, for me, it was always like, I don't care if you ask questions. Like, if you're genuine and you want to know, then yeah, that's great. And like, I can't answer everything about football, but it's like I played up until like I hurt myself, and then it was like, okay, no more football for me. Didn't break anything, but like had a back issue. So I was just like sitting there wondering, like, as we're watching like the competition and the movie, I'm on the couch like, is she like super annoyed right now by me asking all these questions that are like dumb because I'm an outsider?
I can't believe you didn't even say that in the moment.
Well, because I wanted you to answer it in the moment on the show and not have time to prepare a manicured answer for it.
No, I never. The thought of being annoyed never, like, if you hadn't asked that question, that never would have come to my mind.
Okay. It's just me being self-conscious.
Yeah. Why do I annoy you when I ask you questions about football?
No.
That's how I learned.
I know. That's how everybody learns. You gotta ask questions. That was always something that in school that like I was afraid to do. I didn't want to be the person to put my hand up and ask questions because I didn't want to look stupid.
Same.
But I think I came to the realization at a certain point in my life that most people probably feel that way, which is why they're not raising their hands. There's always like the one kid that wants to answer a bunch of questions. And that's so cliche. It's in like every movie. There's always the girl that sits in front raising her hand. The teacher doesn't want to call on her because it's always her kind of thing. You know, that joke is in so many movies. It's kind of in this one too with the Joanne character. But I think the more like I got distance from it, I think people just like public speaking is not something that most people like doing. And then I think being made to look foolish while public speaking is something that people like doing even less, unless you're a politician. But then you have no shame. But this is not a show about politics, at least not today. It's not. But I want to just like the way this movie starts, right? It starts with this sort of like not punk, but like pop punk cultured music. There's a weird, like, the movie starts with BMX and skateboarding, and so it feels like it was like the X Games were big at that time, and they just like threw it in there to make the character more like edgy. Because like even in the trailer, she's like, "Oh, I'm doing crime all the time," or something like that, and it's like, "Ooh, airtime!" Like it's some weird like bad joke, and they end up damaging this like fancy house that's being built, right? And she goes to court, and the judge gives her the choice between going to the military academy or going to this particular gymnastics gym that she, I guess, was a part of before, but is no longer a part of. And she's got some backstory too, but we'll get to that. But I put in my notes that I was like, this is some serious like white privilege shit right here. She gets busted by the cops. There's a scene where she's like running from the police after she's damaged this house, and she's just got the biggest smile on her face as she's running away, like, oh my God, I do this all the time, that kind of thing. And it's like, wow, this is very tone deaf in terms of its presentation of the police, but also in 2006, while this stuff was happening, like social media hadn't quite exploded yet. We hadn't seen like a lot of the things we've seen in the news since then, and is a little bit cavalier in that. And so it kind of walks this line between wanting to maybe be more serious than it is, but also understanding that this is still a comedy at the end of the day. It's still being geared towards the same people for the most part that enjoyed Bring It On. So you can't really like make it the movie that it could be. But I found myself at the end of it wanting the sequel that never happened. I wanted to see a more serious version of this. And like the best way I could equate it would be like if Darren Aronofsky made this film. like you look at a movie like Black Swan that kind of delves into like the psychological damage and competition of trying to make it in the ballet world. You look at The Wrestler and sort of like what is asked of these guys to do to their bodies and like the little that they sort of get back from the business in a lot of cases. So I think a look at gymnastics in that light would be a very interesting and well-made film if you treated it with the same kind of fundamental respect for the sport that this one has. I think there's room there to make a good, well-rounded gymnastics movie that has a sort of like powerful lead performance and is a drama and maybe has some humor too, but is not tonally limited to like a certain age range. But I mean, I watched this movie at almost 40 years old, and I think while we were watching it, you know, I was laughing a lot, and you know, I was taking pictures and taking notes, and you didn't want me to take notes the first time, so I didn't, but so I ended up watching it twice.
I was worried about the notes you would be taking the first time.
Well, we've only gotten into like the first few notes so far, so we'll see how crazy it gets from here. But I enjoyed it like so much more than I thought I would, but it also is super weird in a very enjoyable way.
Yeah, I think that they didn't shy away from the weirdness or try and hide it or even sell it as something that it wasn't with the weirdness. And I don't know, maybe the writer, I didn't look at who it was. Maybe it was their first project or something. Like it felt very much like this is like a go big or go home, and we don't really care because if this is our one and done, they've done it, you know?
Well, it's Bettinger's only directorial credit, but she also had written Bring It On. So she probably got the opportunity to do this film as a result of that. And like you said, might as well swing for the fences. I don't know. It seems like she probably was a gymnast. I don't know much about her, but in order to try to make this story, it seems like oddly personal if she wasn't a gymnast or if she wasn't like very close to somebody that was, I would say.
Yeah, it would, someone would have to have been on the inside to help with this movie, or else they wouldn't have tried to drop those little, you know, Easter eggs. What's happening?
Well, we're at the half-hour mark. I'm debating whether or not I want to do trivia right now.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Screw it. We'll do trivia right now.
Okay.
Time for trivia!
Okay, don't look at my screen. We're in the same room, so...
I mean, I can't read your screen from here.
I'm going to shrink the text down so you definitely can't, but then I won't be able to either.
I can't read it from here.
Stop looking. Okay, question number 1. Which hip-hop artist won a Best Special Effects VMA for their music video for this film?
Missy Elliott?
Yeah, do you know the name of the song?
I did know it. I don't remember now.
That's pretty good. I mean, the answer I was looking for was Missy Elliott, but the song is We Run This.
We Run This. I was getting it confused with the song from Pitch Perfect.
I don't know what that one is.
Never mind.
It's amazing. Question number 2. This was the film debut for which Twilight Saga star?
Oh, I know. I told you this.
So then say it.
Oh my god. I'm gonna butcher his name. Kellen.
He's got the same last name as the guy that used to kick for the Saints. He's on a new team now.
Starts with an L, right?
Yep.
Lutz?
Yep.
Kellen Lutz.
Kellen Lutz.
Oh my gosh.
Ding ding. Hey, that's 2.
Thank you.
That's 2. See, I told you it's not that bad. It's just to include some extra tidbits, some juicy morsels.
It's a lot of pressure.
Some Cenobites.
Ooh.
It's a callback to an old commercial for this show. Cenobites. Anyway, all right. Question number 3. Third and final question. In what state does this film take place?
Texas.
Texas. Why is it in Texas?
Like, why did they film it?
Well, do you know why the story is set in Texas, why this particular gym that is the story is taking place, and why is it in Texas?
No. Oh, I think the owner or someone involved in the movie actually owned it or something.
It's quite possible, but what I looked up based on the documentary we watched was the Caroli Ranch is in Texas. So I was like, that's not a coincidence.
No, it is not. I thought you meant what was the reason in the movie.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I mean, you still got the answer right, but it was just here to lead us into this little tidbit, because we talked earlier about how this movie is deeper and has more context than you would recognize if you're not part of it. But now that it's almost 20 years down the line, a lot of this stuff has come to light, and it was Bela Karolyi and his wife came over from Romania after turning that gymnastics team into, I don't know if they won like just gold medals all the time, but they were the reason that that team was successful. And so they came to the US and took over the gymnastics team here, but they had a reputation of being very abusive. And it's not a coincidence either that Jeff Bridges is an older white guy in this movie, and that he has this gym in Texas, and that his character's history is very closely tied to gymnast injuries as well. And it's an angle that they didn't explore a lot of. There's a lot of allusion to the fact that some gymnasts for him have gotten hurt in the past, but they don't really ever call back to that too much. It's not like, oh, there's some gymnast that he's not working with anymore that switched gyms that is now a rival. You know, like she has this rival at another gym, but she's not a character that comes into play until very, very late in the film, and there isn't this tension between them like she got hurt here. There's no character that her career ended like in a way that yours did due to like a massive injury because the coach pushing her too hard or anything like that. So I think it's a very subtle nod to the people that would know, because this notorious gym run by the Karolis was in Texas, and it was this kind of like sleepaway ranch where we see she runs away one night or something, or no, she's out walking. Jeff Bridges picks her up, they go to dinner. He sort of like lectures her about having talent and not using it and like all the cliche stuff, but they address that in that moment, and you know, they have that little dust up, and then he basically tells her to like walk back to the camp, and when she does, she gets to like a giant barn, and everybody's pissed at her because her attitude is causing problems with the rest of the team. But I was like, all of these things like can't just be like coincidental. And so when I looked it up, of course, I was like, oh, the Karoli Ranch actually was in Texas, because I had a feeling. So I looked it up. And then when we had watched whatever documentary it was where they actually showed the ranch, there was like a large barn-style structure that was like the dormitory. So I was like, this is very intentional, but like you wouldn't know that as just an average person.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Karolis still have the ranch. I don't know if it's still in Texas or not, but yeah, that's what I was trying to kind of explain and not explain at the same time, because I think I picked up, even being in the gymnastics world, I definitely picked up way more subtleties in this go around, even both times, versus seeing it in 2006, because I was aware of everything. I had experienced a lot of those things, but not to, like, I wouldn't have made the connection of the Karoli camp and all of that kind of stuff. Or Jeff Bridges' role as that older white man taking advantage of, I'm sure we'll get to that separately, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of like revisionist history to sort of cast Jeff Bridges in this role, because he has a certain type of charm and charisma that it's really hard to contain. I mean, he's still like very much the Jeff Bridges that he's been in many other things in this film. And even though they go out of their way to tell us that like he has injured many other gymnasts, and there's a scene in The Office where he's sort of false promising this gym mom that her kid is going to end up competing for medals in the Olympics. in order to keep funding the gym, it's like this lie that they push that in order to keep the gym open and to do what he wants to do, he's got to sort of sell the idea that all of these girls are going to be competitive at the highest level, which is obviously not the case really in any sport. But they still don't really cast like shade on him in that moment. Like when it's happening in the film, it's not coming across as like this horrible predatory behavior.
I mean, it is, but it's very minimal because in that first scene we see it, Missy's character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Haley is sitting right outside the office making faces and like, you know, pretending like to make vomit faces and then gives him a hard time about it and then they drop it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like having her in that scene sort of in the background doing like clown work, for lack of a better word, it diminishes what's happening in the office.
Oh, yeah.
And so she lectures him about it later so that the audience understands what was happening in the office. But in that moment, it's like you didn't need to have her in the background making faces. She could have been sitting outside the office just hearing it, and then they still have that same conversation. But the tone is changed a lot by her like interacting in that way, being a clown in that moment. I mean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think especially at the time before, you know, everyone is aware of what they know now. I think it has to be someone very deep rooted in the gymnastics world to have these storylines and be like, for those of you who know, you'll know. But for those of you who don't, this is just going to seem like a stupid scene. You know, it feels very much like that a lot of the movie in what they're trying to shed light on, but very, very gently.
Yeah. And I had asked you at a certain point, like how old she was when she filmed this. And I mean, I guess that's just like a credit to her in general, because like she's on TV right now and it's hard for me to tell the difference between her now and then. But I think she was like 25 filming this, but she presented as if like she was like 17. And I think she was supposed to be like 18 maybe, but it just like the maturity level of the character seemed to be that of angsty teenager.
Well, and it is, I think, but I think what it maybe did a disservice to is telling some of that story backwards. But again, they're trying to pull it off as more of the drama comedy, right? So they couldn't lead with what she went through with her parents and the coach and the trauma coming out of that to lead to the angst, or else it would have been a very different drama and not a comedy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like she definitely has a contentious relationship with her father, who's
and
the
mom.
one
Yeah.
that is like sponsoring her being in this gym rather than in the military academy. And it is through her backstory, which we'll just get to that now, where like I couldn't understand why her two options for the property damage trial that she was going through were either you go to military school or you go back to this gym. Like there was no anything else. It was these two options coming out of court. And I couldn't understand that until it sort of comes to light later that her dad is paying an additional premium to this coach in order to have her at the school. But it leads to this big, like, not shouting match, but this moment of contention between the two of them, because it's like, how do you tell me that you care about me? How are you pretending to be my coach and tell me that you're in it for me when my dad is paying you extra to like babysit me? But in the courtroom, it was always the dad was paying for it. Like they said that at the beginning. So it was kind of like a weird backdoor into it. But what it does is it opens up the door for her and Jeff Bridges' character to have that conversation about what happened to her and why she was this highly prized, highly celebrated gymnast who's probably the most talented gymnast in America in the story. And she had a moment where she didn't choke, but she walked out of a competition. It was the Olympics, I think, that she walked out of, or nationals or something.
I think it was the trials, because they missed whatever the next competition was because of it. And that's why it was such a it made them miss the opportunity for the Olympics.
That's why her rival is pissed at her. That's why a lot of people are pissed at her. But she comes clean and she's like, hey, I found out that my mom was like sleeping with the coach at the other gym. And so like her family world was imploding at the time. And like it's a very serious moment in a movie that's otherwise fairly comical the rest of the way. It's like she's actually like breaking down, she's emotional, and Jeff Bridges as well sort of like recognizes that he was pushing her needlessly in that moment. Like had he known that was the reason, he wouldn't have pushed her. So you take this character who you've established as maybe not the best coach, not the most savory in terms of his business practices, and also not necessarily the best when it comes to child safety because he's got a history of injuring his gymnasts. And you give him like this moment to like soften that and like rip that away and just allow him to be a normal person and feel sympathy for this other person. And it's one of the many things that happens throughout the movie where like Jeff Bridges' character, I think, is essential to what makes the story work. And like when we were watching the trailer, I said, like, I wonder how they got Jeff Bridges to do this, because there's a scene fairly early on where she's back at the gym and she has her two like jabroni friends, Kellen Lutz is one of them, come visit her. And like there's a line of dialogue that these guys have where he says like later cracker, and like there's like a really like stupid ass joke in the car at some point too where it's like he even looks at his friend like that was the punchline, you're supposed to laugh now, but it was like it's so bad. And either way, these two morons come running in and they are just like talking to her, and it comes up in conversation that they're like scaring the gym moms that are bringing their kids there. And they said something like, oh no, those gym moms were checking us out. And Jeff Bridges says to them, it's the devil's candy, boys, like, and just get out of here. And so like when I heard it the first time and wasn't taking notes, I was like, he's definitely banging some of these gym moms. And the second time watching it, the particular gym mom who believes her daughter is going to be an Olympic medalist, that's Joanne, the character who's kind of like the ditzy, bitchy girl in this that nobody likes, but she does what the coach tells her. She's a good student in that way. But it is not so subtly implied that Jeff Bridges is sleeping with her mom, or at least had at some point in the past, because the sort of tension between them when it comes to light that her daughter is not of the caliber to compete in the Olympics, despite having been promised that, there are a lot of context clues that suggest that. And I asked you the second time, I said, oh, they were definitely sleeping together. And you said, yes, for sure. So I think a lot of things like that are not super easy to pick up on if you're not invested in the movie, and if you're generally sort of the age range that wouldn't even be thinking about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I will say, though, one of my favorite scenes in the film is Haley, which is Missy Peregrym's character, sort of like they've mended the relationship with her and Jeff Bridges, or at least they had started to get along at that point, and she's encouraging him to get back on the trampoline and do a layout, right?
Yeah.
Which is just like, explain that for people that don't know. It's like a backflip.
I mean, yeah, I was trying to say, like, if you don't know what a backflip is, that's not going to explain it either.
Well, backflip is more self-explanatory.
Okay, fine. So it's like a backflip, but you're not in a tucked position.
You're in a fully laid out position.
Thank you. Extended.
That's why it's
position.
called a layout. At least I think so. But this is where me not knowing anything about gymnastics, who knows? Could be wrong, but it sounds right, so we'll go with it.
Yes.
But anyway, she encourages him to do that. He does it, and she joking with him, or he, I think, got a little overconfident, and he's like, "Well, how about a full?" And right,
Yeah.
which
Full
is
twist.
full.
So it's the layout, but you do also like a full circle twist at the same time.
He's moving forward.
No, he was moving backward. He's twisting backwards, but when he lands, his feet are behind him, so it bounces him forward.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
I'm making hand gestures like the goodness.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay.
Whatever. Sometimes when I'm on camera with the other person, it's so you can see my hand gestures.
Okay.
When I make shadow puppets. But he does this move, and it's like this sweet moment of him like connecting with the team, and it's like, okay, we're going to start all working together towards this common goal, and we're going to get ready for this, and it's like this bonding moment, and it's like so abruptly interrupted by him missing his landing because he goes shooting off of the trampoline head first and like lands hard, and I burst out laughing during that moment. And he gets up and turns around, he's like, "Call the ambulance." And I don't think he suffers like a serious injury or anything from it, but it is like a weird beat comedically to insert that into that moment, like, because nothing else like funny was happening. Maybe it felt like it needed a joke, and I mean, it worked. It caught me off guard. I did not expect him to get injured in that moment, and I think sort of that maybe intentional humor really worked there. Oh, but what I wanted to do was look up the cinematographer, because as we talked about sort of scenes that I'm talking about, like the first introduction scene to Jeff Bridges is you got all of the sort of gymnasts in a line and he's coaching them, and they all are doing like handstand splits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that would actually be called, but they're all in handstand position and doing the splits, and like one by one they go down the row almost like it's synchronized swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's standing there sort of looking intimidating at the end of that line, and that whole sequence with him in the gym at the very beginning is shot almost with this like menacing intent, even though like the music doesn't match that. It's just the visual presentation where he's shot from the bottom as if he's up on this podium, and it's just like him in a wide shot, so he's very small on the screen, and this whole setup of the steps and the red background, and it looks very clean, and it's something that I enjoyed a lot. It's Darren Okada who did the cinematography, and I mean, let's see. Oh, some Station 19, Grey's Anatomy, Stick It, Just Like Heaven, Paparazzi, Mean Girls, that makes sense. Baby Mama, Joe Somebody, Dr. Dolittle 2.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, it's got like 60 credits. But there's also a lot of moments that incorporate the actual like physicality of the gymnasts into the cinematography. And one of my favorite scenes is like this kind of kaleidoscopic moment where it's looking at the basically like the tumbling mat, right, where they do the floor exercise in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shot like top down, and it's all overexposed on top of each other. So you get this moment where sort of it's all just like undulating on top of itself, and it's a great shot. And later, I think they're working the uneven bars.
It is, but they shoot it like it's just a high bar.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they transition, but yeah. Uneven bars.
So they shoot it where the bar is shot not horizontally, so not like you would see on TV. So you're not facing the gymnast head on. It's shot from profile position. So you don't really see the bar, but it is this long exposure overlapping all of these different routines and techniques. And it just presents in a way that I think was much more elevated than a lot of the rest of the film around it. But the fact that it had those moments actually like was very interesting. And they do some stuff with Haley alone in the gym when she's practicing her floor routine. And then, I mean, I guess the floor routine, like in the way that it's presented, because you have floor music, is this thing of it's the spotlight, I guess, in a way that some of the other competitions are. And it seems like the floor routine, at least the way it's presented in this movie, is like the top of the food chain when it comes to the competitions. Is that accurate? I mean, is floor the hardest?
I wouldn't say floor is the hardest. It could be, depending, well, if you're Simone Biles doing crazy tricks, right? But I wouldn't say the floor is the hardest, but it's the one where, as the gymnast, you get to actually enjoy the event versus vault, bars, and beam are very much, while there's artistry to it, it's a lot more, not strict, but structured, I guess you could say, where floor gives the gymnast so much room to be creative and more artistic and do it with music. So when you're at a competition, most of the audience is going to be watching the floor exercise because of that too.
Yeah, as we were watching the competition on the Peacock or whatever that we were watching, I was asking you, like, does the whole building like hear the music that's playing for the floor exercise? Because all of the events are running concurrently. So there's someone on floor while someone else is doing bars, while someone else is doing vault, while someone else is doing balance beam. But only one of those gets music, and everybody else is listening to the music. So that's why I said that like floor is sort of like the highlight event, even though like it maybe isn't. It kind of is at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely a highlight event in that the best of the best, everyone's going to be like, I can't wait to see their floor routine. Because there's more room to be, like I said, push the artistry versus you can push some artistry on the beam, but you're focusing on staying on that 4-inch piece of wood and not falling off of it.
Yeah, I guess my question would be like, when you start to entertain the question of like, who is the best gymnast in the world? Does the person who is the best at the uneven bars, or the person who's best at the vault, or the person who's best at the beam, do those, like, does that carry over? Or is it always like the person who is the gold medalist or the world champion in floor is the best gymnast in the world?
I mean, I think it's all relative to a certain degree, because in theory, it should be the gymnast who can perform the best on every event, right? It should be a collective versus like we've got our beam I mean, you can do that obviously, but having a beam champion from, like say Simone Biles is beam champion, but she didn't compete on any other event. That's great. She's a master at beam.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got thousands of gymnasts competing all 4 events. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, well, that's what I'm asking. But, when I was saying, like, do I annoy you with stupid questions, is kind of one of those questions. But it's my understanding that there is individual medals handed out for the events, but then there's also an all-around. And so how is that determined then?
So the all-around is usually, or at least it used to be, the average of all your event scores.
Okay. And is that only at the Olympics, or is that through like all qualifying stages?
All levels of competition.
So is the person that's the all-around champion considered to be the best gymnast, or just like the most well-rounded? And does that make them the best? Because, I mean, we see with an athlete like Simone, we talked about this when we were watching her perform, like, just the next closest person isn't close yet. Like, she's so much better than the next person that I don't think there's any question whether or not she's the best, which is maybe, I look at it from a lot of different sports and how you sort of shape the conversations around that, where it's like, look, every offseason, there's always like, is LeBron better than Michael Jordan? Like, seriously, every offseason when there's no basketball to talk about, that same stupid conversation pops up. But with something like gymnastics, like Simone's been dominant for so long and the next closest is not quite there yet. It's just something where like she's going to age out or she'll just stop. I mean, I wouldn't say that she almost retired, but she had a moment where she had to not compete because of like danger to herself and lack of confidence and other things with, what is it called? The Whizzies?
Twisties.
That was pretty close.
That was close. Maybe Whizzies is your product.
Woo! Whizzies. So I don't know the sport well enough. You know, I only really watch it at the Olympics, but we watched it at home a couple times that weren't part of the Olympics. And to see Simone on floor, it's like, I guess because there's no apparatus, everything has to be generated just from you, which is more a sign of like sort of your athletic dominance, because there's nothing to rely on to generate momentum other than your body. So I think that's where like the gap between her and maybe the next person excels. But when we watched her on uneven bars at that event, she killed it. Like she had a great routine. Yeah, she's so good and she's so fluid and so powerful in her movement that it's a noticeable difference between like her and the next closest person. But realistically, like the next best person is probably still on Team USA, right?
Yeah, I think to compare as far as the best gymnast or best kind of label goes, I think it's one of those things where if you look at it from a big picture, right? If you can master and get a gold on all 4 events and have the highest all-around score because of it, that's like the best of the best.
That's pretty indisputable.
Yeah.
I won everything and had all the highest scores.
So it's similar, like if you look, like we were talking about, I can't remember what the context was, but we're talking about, you know, all these gymnasts get a minute, maybe a minute and a half on the event to practice before they're expected to perform one time. So if you look at that, like one routine on 4 events, plus adding all of those together to get your all-around score, it's like, I'm going to try and use an MMA comparison, but it's like they do 3 to 5 rounds, right? And then they average the scores, I'm pretty sure.
No, it's total cumulative score, but there is...
But best out of each round, right?
Not necessarily. Well, it's a 10-point must system, which is borrowed from boxing, so it doesn't really work for MMA that well, but it's like the person who wins the round gets a 10 unless they have a foul, in which case they won the round, but the point deduction causes a tie. So there's weird judging there too. But
right. But you're still looking at it as...
You can recover from a bad round.
Right. You can recover from a bad round and still win the title or a belt from doing the same thing for, 5 rounds, 5 minutes, whatever. And then in a sport like this, you're getting one chance to perform the routine perfectly for 4 events.
Yeah, and when we had talked about it, I said the closest like comparable thing would probably be ice skating, because it is sort of like routine and trick based, scored on difficulty and execution. And in ice skating, they have long and short program, which I think would be interesting to introduce into gymnastics, but they just recently switched the whole scoring system there as well. But if you look at something like beam, uneven bars, floor, and the other one I'm missing, vault. Like those are all very different skill sets to learn. Right. So to be expected to be the best on all 4 of them at once is unlikely anyway. Like that, it would be very hard to be like, oh, I've mastered like my best routine on every event, and it also happens to be like the best routine in the world in all 4 events as well. So I think it's fairly unlikely to like have that as the standard, right? Which is why they give out medals for individual events, and they do all around, and they do team, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to contribute to being on the team. There's a lot of ways to sort of achieve individual status, and it's like, hey, I won a gold medal in uneven bars, like I'm obviously one of the best gymnasts in the world, and like this is true, right? And I think it's a good thing, because otherwise it's like Simone's going to have a very heavy bag full of gold and silver and bronze to take with her at some point. But I think what I wanted to touch on was we've gotten way out into the weeds of just talking about gymnastics in general, but that's fine. We had talked.
Edit it later.
No, I want to leave it in because I don't think gymnastics is a sport that is well represented by sports media for the most part. Like, they fall in love with it when it's the Olympics and when Simone is good for ratings, but aside from that, it's sort of like cast aside like a lot of Olympic events. And one of the things that we talked about while watching it was like, why is there not just like a regular season like they do with football, where the focus on like how good these athletes are matters? I would say women's gymnastics is maybe the one American sport where the women's is more popular than the men's, right? WNBA, they have a lingerie football league because nobody else is going to watch otherwise. You know, I mean, the LPGA, all of this, like when compared to their male counterparts, the male version of the sport is always the dominant version. But I would say that with gymnastics and probably with figure skating too, the female side of the sport is the dominant side. So to see that there isn't kind of like the infrastructure in place to make like athletic careers for these people, because the Olympics are only like once every 4 years, and then the rest of the time you're training for the Olympics. And sure, there's competitions and you can win some money here and there, but I would argue that while I don't know her pocketbook, I would hazard a guess that Simone Biles makes the vast majority of her money on sponsorships.
Oh, yeah.
Because I
Absolutely.
know the Olympics don't pay that well.
No. Yeah, I would say sponsorships for sure. I mean, it's cool to also see a lot of the gymnasts end up having their own leotard lines. So they get creative as well.
That's cool, but how many leotards are you selling?
I mean, I don't think that's where they're making their money. I'm just saying it's fun. They get to do that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely would be from sponsorships.
Yeah, and my point was more just about like the infrastructure for these people to have incentive to like compete. And we talked about going to see like a UCLA meet because these are probably young women that are in like their 18 to 22 range, where a lot of gymnasts are like at 16, 17. And if I remember correctly from the documentary we watched, there was a time up until probably it probably was Nadia. Wasn't she super young when she did the Olympics? She was like 16 or something.
Yeah, she was. I think she's why the age is 16.
Yeah, because if I remember the documentary correctly, Olympic gymnastics was like a women's sport. Like women in their 20s and 30s were doing gymnastics. And then this little 14, 15-year-old came along and just decimated everybody. And it was like, now the standard is set that you can compete at this age. And it happened in snowboarding too, where I think it was one of the X Games, maybe it was the Olympics not that long ago, where the two Japanese snowboarders came in, I think at like 15 and 16 years old. And I think they won gold and silver, or they medaled both. And just like super impressive. But when you're super young and you've been training your body a certain way for X amount of time, like you have a very good strength to weight ratio, which makes you a very, it doesn't automatically make you good, but it makes you much easier to mold as a gymnast than picking it up at 15 or 16 and then doing it into adulthood in your 20s and 30s, right? But we had talked about, like, I want to see a professional track and field league that has events, because I love track and field, but I only get to watch it once every 4 years because it's not really focused on. But the way that we sort of prioritize, like, stick and ball and team sports really doesn't leave a lot of, like, meat left on the bone for all these other endeavors of, like, great athleticism. Like, I can't tell you how many times like we watch the NFL and they put a speed tracker like in this guy's uniform. So it'd be like, this guy was running 22 miles an hour on this play. It's like, yeah, you know who else runs fast? Sprinters. Every sprinter in the world is faster than this guy. So like, why are you obsessed with his speed when there's so many other faster people out there? But you get a guy like Marquise Goodwin, who played for the Seahawks, played for the 49ers. I think he's still playing. I don't remember where he's at right now, though. But he was a long jumper in college. And then it was like, well, I can either long jump or I can play in the NFL. And his skill set as just being fast got him into the NFL. And it's like, is he an elite level receiver in the NFL? No, he's not even close, but he's fucking fast. So, I mean, we're way out there now, but I did look it up.
Reel it back in.
No. There is a professional track and field league. I think it's called the TFL. And I've never heard of it until I looked it up, but I was like super into the idea, so now I have to like find a way to go to one of these events and watch pole vault and sprinting and all this stuff. And the Olympics are coming to LA, so what is that, 28?
Yeah, because
Right?
next year is Paris, I think.
Yeah, I think they delayed it because our infrastructure wasn't ready in time, so they moved a
Shocker.
bit. Right.
We can't handle rain. How are we going to handle the Olympics?
Oh God, imagine if it's raining during the Olympics.
Oh, God.
LA is gonna melt down.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not really optimistic.
There's a moment in this film. We're going to get back to the film, but we're talking about, you know, all this other stuff happening. But in this movie, there comes a moment where Haley is trying to take the pressure off of her teammates by telling them, like, imagine the judges in their underwear or something like that. And then it becomes this very weird scene of all the judges having like their own musical number where they do this song and dance routine, and you know, it's very strange. But when we talked about sort of like the musical DNA that exists in this movie, that's part of it. And another part of it is that the judges play such a large role in gymnastics, and especially at that time. But this was still in 2006 when it was a perfect 10 scoring system, right? And we talked about it a little bit, but there is a moment of sort of heated dialogue between one of the judges and between Jeff Bridges as they're trying to explain a deduction to him. And I think the reason that it's in the film is because of how ridiculous some of these deductions are. And in the movie, it happens to be that her bra strap is showing. And so she gets a deduction. But in reading a little bit about it too, it was the reason that they used the stickum spray, from at least what I read, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was so that the leotard doesn't ride up. But it was written that if a gymnast, while like in the routine, pulls the wedgie from her butt, that's an automatic deduction as well.
Yep. It's also why I said when we were watching it, I was like, or not watching Stick It, but I pointed it out during Stick It as to the reference in the actual gymnastics we were watching of the competition with Simone, where I'm like, since when are they allowed to have their nails painted and acrylics and like certain things in their hair? They're wearing makeup. When I was competing, your nails were not allowed to be painted. You did get a deduction if you picked your wedgie. If your bra was showing, your underwear was showing. If you know, like most gymnasts will put their hair back in a tight bun with clips to keep all the little hairs back, because if you like touch your face and hair, it's a deduction. If a clip falls out while you're on floor and tumbling and a judge sees it, they'll give you a deduction. So yeah, it was definitely paying tribute to the ridiculousness of it. But that's why I'm surprised now in watching the competitions in real time why that's allowed all of a sudden. Or I don't know when it became allowed, but it wasn't when I was competing.
Yeah, well, that's why I brought it up. And like while we were watching it, you know, we had just watched the actual competition, and we had talked about the scoring system and how it's different than it used to be. And I was asking you if this movie had a direct impact on the change of the scoring system, because it's probably the first time that the general public was ever introduced to some of like the ridiculous nature of the judges and how impactful their like opinions were in the scoring system. And, you know, maybe it was subtle, maybe it wasn't, but the way that the movie sort of unfolds and what happens at the end of the film, where all of the gymnasts sort of agree to, what do they scratch, right?
Yeah.
They basically forfeit their turn in order to control the results because of this instance with this girl's bra showing. But that's why I was curious if this movie had an impact on changing that, because all of the little deductions that you were mentioning, they're not technical deductions. Like, this isn't, oh, you stepped out of bounds, or you didn't stick the landing, or you missed your hand. This is all like vain, superficial stuff. Like, oh, your hair clip fell out, your bra strap was showing, kind of stuff. And, I didn't think of it at the time, but I don't know when the rules changed.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm curious because, like I said, I've been removed from a coaching side for too long. And I haven't. I mean, I still do want to go to a UCLA competition, but the lower level competitions where they're pretty much high school age and under is where these deductions are taking place. So I don't know to what degree it either dropped or wasn't implemented as much in a college level to then the Olympic level. But it is interesting.
Well,
are you Googling?
Thank God for the internet. Because according to this entry on Wikipedia, it says in 2006, same year as the movie, the code of points and the entire gymnastics scoring system were completely overhauled. The change stemmed from the judging controversy at the 2004 Olympics in Athens, which brought the reliability and objectivity of the scoring system into question, and arguments that execution had been sacrificed for difficulty in artistic gymnastics.
That makes sense. The timing is interesting.
So yeah, 2004, that controversy happens. Then 2006, the movie is made, and 2006, the rules change. So again, like, it happened at the Olympics where the most eyeballs are going to be on the sport, and the average person is going to be like, this doesn't make sense to me. And then 2 years later, which probably took a year to 2 years to actually make the movie, so it probably did stem from that event at the Olympics.
In 2004.
And then in that same year, the rules are changed. So I am going to say that, yes, it did impact.
Good observation, babe.
I know. Thank you. I do my homework. I take notes.
So proud.
But yeah, so like in this film, that moment happens where the girl's bra is showing. They take the point off so she doesn't get the score that she's supposed to get. And it gets everybody heated. And then Haley, who's the rebel, who's also the best gymnast, decides that she's going to forfeit her turn, and then all of her friends follow suit. And what it does is it gives them power over who's going to win which event. And then we meet her rival for the first time in the last 5 minutes of the film, which, it would have been nice to have like a real rivalry between the two of them. But the rivalry is more like the bitchy girl, Joanne, that can't compete with her, but just happens to be in her sphere, and like their personalities are in competition more so than their actual gymnastic skills.
You gonna finish that thought?
That's the end of the thought.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but in that moment where he's arguing with the judge over like why it shouldn't be a deduction, I love that he becomes so animated that he's like, her bra strap, he's like, she's flipping through the air.
Yeah, it was actually nice to have that moment because he's definitely set up to be very easily hated. I mean, I hated him immediately until the final moments, I would say. So it was a nice moment for him to, especially as the role he's playing in of power, to also be able to get a little bit of understanding in what they're actually probably going through.
Yeah. And, it's not the only moment where they sort of give him that moment of leniency. We had talked sort of about that scene where Haley is observing him lying to one of the other moms about the chances of being in the Olympics, etc. And then it gets to the point where he is confronted with the mom that he very much was having an affair with at some point. And that moment where he has to own up to her and he says like, well, I guess I lied. Like, in that moment, you should hate him because of like what he's manipulated this mom. He's seemingly had a personal relationship with her. He's lied to her daughter. Like, there's a lot of bad things surrounding that. But by the time that you actually get to that scene, they spent so much time building up the dislike for Joanne's character. And it's right before that where Joanne finally has a moment where you are on her side and they sort of pit her against her mother. She's like, she wants to like go on a date with boys or something. She wants to go to homecoming or prom or something. And she's like so excited about it. And her mom comes in very bitchy and is like, no, you're in this for gymnastics. There's not going to be any of that. And so she's like very deflating of her daughter. So when they like introduce the mom in this moment, they clearly make her out to be like the villain that doesn't understand. And so that moment of Jeff Bridges sort of like having to come clean and be like, yeah, I lied to you about all that is like a moment that works for me in his favor because he just has to own it. Like there's nothing he can say other than like, I bullshitted you and oh well, like your daughter's not good enough. So I don't know. It is not necessarily a good indication of his character that he arrived there, but they do a decent enough job. And Jeff Bridges is just like I said, he's Jeff Bridges. Like he's such a charismatic screen presence that it's hard to dislike him. And I don't see him cast as the villain very often, probably for that reason. Although he was the villain in Iron Man, but still pretty charismatic.
Yeah.
I think now it's probably a good time to go to Critics Corner.
What does that mean?
That means we get to read all of the nasty comments that the critics had about this movie when it came out.
Oh, fun.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, let's go. Where did I put it is the question. I've got so many tabs open. There we go. Okay, I'm going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top as we always do on this show. Starting at the bottom, you've got a 30 out of 100 from Stephen Hunter at the Washington Post. He says, instead of gold medal winning, last-minute heroics, the movie weirdly becomes about the scandal of arbitrary gymnastics judges. Is it a movie or an episode of Real Sports? It veers into fresh territory, but not dramatically satisfying territory. So this is kind of the issue that I had with the film, is that I felt like there is substantial depth there for it to be like a good drama. But it does veer off into this other territory, and it becomes a referendum on like the scoring in the sport when it seemed like it was going to be this sort of heroic return to competition for this girl, and then it just like doesn't go in that direction. So I understand what he's saying, but I enjoyed a lot of the other things about it enough to still get it over the hump and have it be a movie that I like, not this 30 out of 100.
That's harsh.
That is harsh. The next one up on the food chain is a 40 out of 100 from the LA Times. This guy is Kevin Crust.
Terrible name.
That's not a name you want. The film strives for some type of girl empowerment message that equates trading one type of conformity for another with self-determination, but muffs the dismount and stumbles on the landing. In other words, it fails to stick it. So, as we talked about earlier, a man who has likely never competed in gymnastics in his life, using a lot of gymnastics terms to try to make his point here.
That is horribly written.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Mr. Crust, but I think it does send a message of girl empowerment. I mean, the film ends with like all the girls on the same team taking over a sport that has cost them a lot physically, and just in terms of time, and like they show you throughout the film that like these girls don't have a life outside of gymnastics. So I think it is actually an empowering moment for them at the end. I would agree more with the guy who rated it lower. Although, Mr. Crust, we're gonna leave that one behind. We're gonna move on. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 50s.
Wow.
So most people were just like, it is a 5 out of 10, right smack dab in the middle. But we've got the AV Club, the Chicago Tribune, Austin Chronicle, Christian Science Monitor, LA Weekly, and USA Today. I'll let you pick, and I think we'll go with 2 50s just for fun because there's so many.
Let's go with USA Today.
USA Today says Bridges actually does a fine job in an uninteresting role, but this chick flick is all about attitudinal teenagers. Claudia Puig from USA Today.
She sounds like a mom with teens.
I'll just leave it at that, and we'll move on to another one. You've got AV Club, Tribune, Chronicle, Christian Science Monitor, and LA Weekly left on the board.
Let's go with Tribune.
Chicago Tribune. I think this was Roger Ebert's paper? I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think so. I don't think this is Ebert, though. It says, Stick-It reels from its own frenetic pace. The music is loud, the camera cuts are incessant, and everything seems geared towards distracting us from what's going on screen, which is not much. So that's a very middle-of-the-road, like, non-existent criticism of the film. But it's like, hey, it's fast-paced, and there's stuff happening, but not really. So not a great one there, but the good thing is we've got two pretty high scores left on the board with the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, which is an 83. It says it's a sports empowerment fantasy of the best kind. And I think that's a really good way to put it. Sports empowerment fantasy. Because you look at a lot of sports movies that are revered, like Rudy or Remember the Titans or Field of Dreams, where like there's ghost baseball, you know. Rocky, like there's a lot of these movies that sort of like fantasize and romanticize the achievement in sport, where the ultimate thing in the movie that makes it like worth your time is the achievement at the end, where that's really not the case here. Like the achievement becomes secondary to making this particular statement about the sport. And I mean, considering this is like your first film as a director and you're coming off of Bring It On and you may not get another chance, it's a ballsy move to be like, we're going to abandon that moment that every other sports movie has, where there is this dramatic winning moment where she overcomes all the things that have stood in her way. She gets back out there on the floor and she has like that monumental floor routine that wins her a gold medal, which she does have the floor routine that does win her a gold medal in the competition, but it is planned. It is a fixed competition at that point. So there's no actual competition. She just gets to perform the floor routine and do it in a way that showcases her skills. And so it's a very different methodology in terms of sports filmmaking.
Yep.
Last but not least, the New York Times, a spry teenage comedy. Sorry, this is a 90 from the New York Times. 90 out of 100. That's pretty good. This is America's paper of record. So a 90 out of 100 says something, I guess. A spry teenage comedy that gets everything right. Stick-It takes the usual batch of underdogs, dirtbags, mean girls, and bimbos, and sends them somersaulting through happy cliches and unexpected invention. I think that's a very nice way to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it really nails a lot of the character dynamics that the movie is going for. It highlights some of those cinematography choices and some of those framing decisions and some of the sort of direction to have these moments of like the montage of the gym training that is in a lot of sports movies as well. So I think in that way, it actually lands like basically in everything that it wants to do. Some, you know, dated stuff going on, but at the same time, like, you know, sooner or later, every movie's going to be dated. And it's just how I think it says more about the early 2000s than it does about this film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because the film was made because of the time it was at, not the other way around. But what I was going to say earlier is that it's what you were saying was speaking to the go big or go home moment by, yes, we're going to be weird.
Yeah, if you only got one shot, might as well take it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And it's not a movie that I ever would have thought I was going to watch. And it's definitely not a movie I thought I would watch twice. But I wanted to do my due diligence and made sure I take notes, and I sort of like answered some of my own questions and was able to refine my notes, so it wasn't just an hour and a half of me asking you to explain the movie to me, which would have been fine, but
yeah.
I'm glad I watched it though. And, you know, we already talked about Bring It On, and Jessica Bettinger wrote Bring It On. But at the end of all my shows, I always ask my guest if somebody enjoyed Stick It and you wanted to recommend another movie to them, or if someone hasn't seen Stick It, but there's a movie that you think would get them to watch Stick It, what's that movie?
Oh, wow.
Or if it helps, maybe frame it as, what's a movie you would like double feature it with? You can say Bring It On, but, you know, we've already talked about that, so.
Yeah, I mean, Bring It On is pretty spot on. I don't know.
Just think it's okay.
Maybe Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday, huh? Why is that? It's okay. We watched Wild Wild West, and then somebody recommended Schindler's List. So I don't know how those two connect, but I guess he was just like, well, if you want to watch an actually good movie, that's the exact opposite of Wild Wild West, watch Schindler's List.
Okay. Well, the other movie I've been really upset about not being able to find for so many years, because I think it was a Lifetime movie, was a gymnastics movie.
Oh, okay.
Called Little Girls in Pretty Boxes.
Sounds like a horror movie.
I mean, it was sad. It was more drama, less comedy.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think, hit on the undertones of Stick It. So those stories they're trying to poke holes at, but make a lot of light of, that movie was more punch to the stomach. As far as, if you watched Little Girls in Pretty Boxes, I think you'd have enough context to understand Stick It a little bit more.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So there you go. That's a good double pairing.
Thank you.
I guess if I don't always offer these up when I do the show, because I typically leave it to the guest, but there's an ice skating movie from 1992 called The Cutting Edge.
Oh my gosh, my favorite.
And just because of the particular words that I saw in one of the reviews, the premise for this movie is a temperamental figure skater and an arrogant former hockey player attempt to win Olympic gold medal as a figure skating pair's team. And
I love this movie.
Yeah, it's I think tone-wise, they're definitely in the same neighborhood. They both sort of focus around like trying to win gold. There's a lot of hurdles in the way. There's attitude, but it is still kind of like a romantic comedy. So I think that's a good one. If you're gonna do that as a double feature, like if you were programming movies and you had these two together, I'd be like, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I told your sister to watch this movie if she hadn't watched it already because of the ice skating. I love that movie. We talked about it recently.
Oh, that's cool.
Or within this year.
Okay. Well, there you go. And that's how we do it. That's the show.
Thanks for having me, babe.
Thank you for being here. We may or may not get our podcast off the ground at some point. It'll be like my third or fourth show. And then if I end up getting this other football show that isn't mine technically, but I would be hosting it, it would be less work because I don't have to produce it, but I still have to record. So I don't know. Who knows? This is going to be me. And just make one podcast a day keeps the doctor away. But
we can make it a 2024 goal.
Yeah.
It's around the corner.
Yeah, because I know you don't have like your own show right now, but you do the football picks with me on Saturdays on the Shice podcast. We do the Pick'em show, and at the end of the Pick'em show, you always say Happy Football Sunday. But this isn't about football. It's not gonna be Sunday, so I'm gonna sign off with Happy Podcast Friday.
Aw, I like it.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you once again to Christen for joining me. It's been a long time coming. She has been my biggest supporter, my strongest advocate, and without her, I wouldn't be able to do this show. So thank you, babe. And you can catch her and I on the Shice podcast, bullshitting football picks and seeing how we do every week. And of course, thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to this episode. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to podcasts, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you do, please consider leaving a rating and telling a friend about it. And the new support page is live at ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/badmovieswelove. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have a bad movie you love, and or maybe would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact me now at badmovieswelove@theshice.com or badmovieswelove on Twitter and Instagram, and that's love with an LUV. And as always, take care, be well, stay safe, and have fun however you get your movies.